He had been driving home, and he saw a car on fire, and he stopped his car, and he helped the man out of his car, and this man was already on fire. All his clothing was on fire, and Vic got a write-up in the paper about that, and also this man happened to be a member of the Teamsters Union, and the Teamsters, in rescuing this man, Victor had burned his coat. So the Teamsters gave him a voucher to Downs Men's Shop on Grand and Olive, so he could buy a new coat. And of course, progressing a little further, I got married in 1938, and anyway, we have two nice children and 5 grandchildren. We're very thankful for that. We just got back from California. We attended 3 graduations, and we're still continuing in the name of Singer, because my son, of course, has 2 daughters, so we'll continue at least that far. And that's pretty much it. Well, my son-in-law is Alan Newman, married to my daughter Linda. My son is married to Carolyn, and his children are Whitney, who is 14 years old, just graduated middle school, and also Jennifer, who's 11, and she just graduated grade school. Now my grandchildren are Derek, who's going to be a junior this coming year at UCLA in Los Angeles, and my grandson Jeremy, who just graduated high school, and he's enrolled at Bakersfield College, and Brandon, who just graduated middle school. And incidentally, he's a hell of a hockey player. Hopes to make that a career. Thank you.
What you neglected to tell is this is for Mary, and I think we should tell a little more about Mary. Mary, this is the parents. I don't know if you can get this picture of Mike and Lena Singer. And that was 1907, January 1st. Can you get that all right in there?
You have to show you have to show who they are in the picture.
Okay, well now this, on the picture, there is Annie Stone, who was Mike Singer's sister, and Paul Stone, the brother-in-law. They were standing up, and then Crana, who came with Mrs. Singer on the boat from Europe. And that was her husband. And this was Mike and Lena Singer sitting there. And then I have this picture, as we're starting on Mary, as a cousin, Schechter. The Sion got married, and Nat, the oldest brother, and Mary stood up at the wedding. And they were part of this wedding party, who also was different members, cousins in the family. And I thought that would be nice to show for Mary's family and all. Now you want to go with Nat?
What are you going to say?
Can you talk about, Uncle Clarence, can you talk about your grandmother and grandparents?
Hello, I'm Arnold Singer, and this is my wife, Esther. She's been with me a long time.
How long?
Gott weiß. Anyway, Jack, who was talking earlier, he was with me for about 20 years, and we got along very well. We still get along more or less, but it was a nice relationship. I had my grandfather had a horse and a wagon for quite a while, and he took and raised whatever you call it. I saw him lift up, which even to this day.
Okay.
I saw him lift up whatever you call it. Iron radiators, and put them on this wagon, which even to this day seems unbelievable to me, but I saw it done, myself. So anyway, we went into business. We were in business for quite a while. Jack was with me for about 20 years there. How come I survived that long, I don't know, but that's the way things were. And we have a nice group of children. How many were there?
4.
4? Okay, I'll settle for that.
The oldest is Marilyn. 1 girl.
Marilyn, we had 1 girl, Marilyn, thank God. And we were very, very fortunate. We had 3 boys, and we had a nice family. We went into business. It was quite a successful business, and that's the way things went.
You want to go through the evolution of Warehouse of Fixtures, how that started?
No, I think this is just for the singers, Mark.
That's part of the singers.
Let's go through this, how Warehouse of Fixtures started, and where it went from there, and whoever wants to jump in.
Are you want
jump
to
in.
start it up at the the uniform company?
At
We were
511
upstairs.
Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when you were in that, when you first
Mhm.
started in that building.
Okay, now tell them.
We are now down on South Broadway there. We have a successful business, I think. And we're still in business. It's been very fortunate, and we're very, very happy with the results.
We have 1 daughter, Marilyn Sue, 3 boys. The oldest is Don. He's a lawyer. The next one is Larry. He's in business with us. We still have the Warehouse of Fixtures. And Mark is a dentist. And let's see, is that 3 boys now, Mark? Forget. But anyway, they're a wonderful family, and we've been very fortunate. And I remember going to the singers when we were just married. We would go. I would wheel the walker, huh? The walker, all the way from Kingsbury to where did they live on that house? What was the huh? Well, anyway, we used to walk there because we wouldn't ride on a holiday. After a while, I said to him, look, we're not going if I can't drive. That's too long a walk, to go. But I remember the house and Cappy, that big dog, and that lived next door, and also the chickens that she had. Raised all these chickens and a beautiful garden. And one day she said to me, why don't you take these chickens and cook them and have a dinner? And I looked at her, I said, I could never eat those chickens. but the kids enjoyed going over there, and she enjoyed having them. And anyway, it was a very, very nice time for the kids. And then, but I still remember that dog, that Cappy, that was that great big Great Dane. Yeah, but anyway, we used to visit on Sunday, and we enjoyed it, and she enjoyed having us. And she'd bake those plätzl, those cookies, you know, those Mun cookies, and the kids, yeah, Karjas, yeah, and the kids loved it. And Arnold to this day loves fried potatoes. He says nobody could make fried potatoes like my mother, and I believe it. And he said, my mother doesn't, I was making hamburger, and he said, my mother doesn't put onions in hamburger. And so one day I went over there and I said, my God, Arnold, talk about onions. She's loaded them with onions. So anyway, I got a cooking lesson that way. And Sylvan, maybe you can...
Go a little more into the warehouse and fixtures, just starting, and Sylvan can jump in and whoever, and when it started with mannequins, and was it something?
Oh, yeah, we made mannequins, and we had a plating plant, but the old Saman building. And we had one of these big elevators, these freight elevators, and I used to have to walk the steps, but finally I learned to work the freight elevators because it was too hard walking up and down. That was a very interesting building, that Saman building. And Sylvan worked for us, and
What about from the
Jack.
beginning? What can you say from the beginning, the real old days?
well, we were on Franklin Avenue, right near 7th.
Even before that, so all the way back.
Oh, gosh. Every time Arnold bought some fixtures, we were there for a while.
I mean, what about South Broadway and what happened there?
Well, that was a...
How about when you met Dad and all that? How about that?
Well, anyway, we lived upstairs from the store on South Broadway, and then we had to move down the street because somebody bought the building. But then Arnold decided he didn't like the dress business, so he went down to visit this place, one that was making mannequins, and he decided, I said, if that's what you want to do, then that's what we'll do. And it was hard at first, but anyway, we survived, and we're still in business. Let's just leave it that way.
She want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm Sylvan Singer, the baby of the family. This is my wife, Shirley, and have two daughters, Lisa and Janet. And I was with Arnold for 20 years. I think Jack was there for 40 years. No, he was there about 25 years.
No one mentioned why Jack got into help at the picture place. He was in the dress business. We had a factory then.
That's right.
My dad had a dress factory. Jack was the head designer. And, you know, my dad was the owner of it. And Sam was the salesman. Jack had to go to the Army. When he came back, that's why, and he and Arnold were like this. They used to go to the library constantly, back and forth, walk at night, you know, and all. And they were friends. And that's how Jack ever got to help out and be at your picture place.
The theater was a melting pot that was always.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that you were in the dress business for years. When you went off to the Army, that did it.
Oh, I was
That's
in-
why you were with him, right?
Okay, you...
That's why the Japanese buckled down to us, because he got in the Army. And I was there with him on Guam.
That's right.
Don't you wish you were
Oh.
there again?
Oh.
But anyway,
Oh, you want the talking thing, Helen?
Talk, so.
No, wait a minute.
When you're referring back to that early days, actually, Mary would take Eleanor for piano lessons, and many a times we would go to recitals or go to different occasions, and I think this would be nice to show of Eleanor when she was at a piano recital. And it was a lovely picture of her and the family, and I think this would be nice to show also in the tape. And there were many incidents that we would go for Eleanor in confirmation or graduation, and there were many, many parties that we all enjoyed. And Eleanor was just a beautiful child growing up, and she won to Interlochen, Michigan, was it? You won? And she went to music camp, and we were all so thrilled for her. And she had many occasions, you know, it was with Sunday school and was with many occasions, and Mary always had the family over, and it was just wonderful to get together. It was a big family, and we'd always get together. And if we didn't go to Mary's house, we came to our house, and everybody ended up at our house. And Clarence and I were always happy to have the family over, and they would all come, and it was sort of a meeting place. Many of the family would get together and come, and there were many wonderful times that we all got together. But Mary looks very attractive, and we have some young pictures here of Mary that I would like to be included in there. And she really was very lovely. Can you get these pictures in good?
Is that Mary?
Yeah, that's Mary. And then Mary is on this picture, and Mary, yeah, now this is when she stood up at a wedding. We're getting that? And then this is a picture of Mary as a young girl, which I think is nice to have. And there were just this one?
Yeah.
Mhm. And as we're doing this for Mary, I think we should have some of her beautiful pictures in. She was such a pretty girl and had such beautiful hair, and that's how I met her. Did you get them now? I want to be sure that she was included in all. And this is Mary watching over her brothers and taking care of them. And she was like the little second mother to them because they always came to Mary and she took care of them. But one incident that I remember that Clarence always talked about, how beautiful her hair was, he says on Saturday night, he says, I always washed Mary's hair for her. And he says, I always rinsed it and I was the one that washed her hair. She had real long hair down the middle of her back. And he always talked about washing Mary's hair, how beautiful it was. And about her 16th birthday party, he always told that story to everybody. He was so thrilled with it. There was so much ice cream. He says, wherever you walk, there was ice cream. You didn't tell that. We're talking, you know, about Mary today. So I think these little incidents should be brought up that are memories that she will always remember and have for the future. And many years may you look at them and remember them. And there she is with different brothers. Can you catch them over there? I thought these would be nice to include and have. And
That's a little member of the family.
we have pictures of you. I'll show to you later. Of course, these are very small ones. We used to take Mr. and Mrs. Singer on picnics. We used to take them on picnics all the time. And I think this one is a very pretty one of Mary up here. And we have some on the back when she and Eleanor, and they had the little black dog on Stanford. Midnight, yes. And when Sylvan came over, he was in the service. And we have a picture of him in uniform. And Clarence is a young boy. You have this side.
And Gugu, when she was a young...
A young duck. I raised a duck.
Ellen, I hate to interrupt. Do they have anything about, they had a Sweet 16 party for Mary?
I was telling
You have
him.
that?
No, I don't have the pictures, but I told that there was so much ice cream, that all Clarence remembered, there was so much ice cream, he was always telling about
My
it.
brother Sam was there with his boyfriend.
Yep.
They didn't know what to get her for a gift. I know you can't hear it from here. But with the gift they gave her, we all laughed and she got a kick out of it. Those boys went ahead and they got some brand new bricks, red bricks, and they brought in with a big heavy box, wrapped up with a ribbon and all, and Mary was thrilled. And after she opened it, she laughed herself about it. She said, that's the best present I ever got. It was heavy for one thing, you know, and brand new bricks. I'll never forget that. Sam and my brother were at that party, at your birthday party, when you were 16.
That was Mary in knee pants in the water.
We need to just show the big pictures. We can talk about
Oh,
the pictures.
okay.
Put them on this table.
This is Mary and Nat, they were in a
You were there too?
wedding together.
We need to angle them a little bit so we don't get the light. That's it.
Jack went to go buy this.
And this is picture Mary with her long braids. I think that, I've already shown that. And then. See that. The long braids.
Anyway, I want to relate a few gems. I call them gems, but regarding my sister Mary.
Eleanor is a baby.
There was and I've told this story before, but there was a young girl that lived sort of on the other side of the tracks when we lived on Hodement and Bartmer Avenue, and she and I had some kind of a argument, whatever it was,
With her curls.
and I called her a name, you know, referring to the oldest women's profession, you know. So anyway, she shot back at me, well, what do you think your sister is? And I'll tell you, if she'd have taken a knife and stabbed me in the heart, I couldn't have felt more pain than her saying that. Well, needless to say, I chased her for about 5 or 6 blocks, and she probably outdistanced me. But that was one of the things that it always stuck in my mind. Another thing I remember talking about the Sweet 16 party. I remember that particularly because of the ice cream, and the way they used to deliver the ice cream then. That was before they had, you know, this. They used to deliver it in wooden tubs, and they put ice around this metal cylinder that the bricks of ice cream were in, and then put salt on that to keep it from melting too fast. Well, anyway, at that party, my mother and father bought Mary a present, and this was quite a thing in those days. It was a Victrola. And
The Victrola.
the Victrola, that was a musical box that you wound it by hand, and they played all kinds of records on it. And
The phonograph.
well, it was a phonograph, but they used to call that a Victrola because
It was a brand name, wasn't it?
it was a brand name. And I remember my father said that cost $400 at that time. So another incident that happened with Mary and I, in 1929, my father and I and Mary, we made a trip up east to New York and Boston. And on that trip, we took a passenger with us, Dr. Elson, who was a friend of the family, and he was going to intern at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. And anyway, on the way up there, we stopped. We used to stop in. That was before they had a lot of motels out, and we used to stop in tourist houses. So I recall that I was in this one house and I fell down the steps and injured my knee, and Dr. Elson was there to give me first aid. So on the way up, close to New York, I split my pants open, the rear side of the pants. And we were approaching New York, and this was kind of a dilemma. What was I going to do about the split pants? So Mary was she had a needle and thread with her, and she was trying to sew up the pants while we was going in the car. And every time we hit a bump, the needle would go. Finally, we had to give up on that. So when we did get to New York and we went to this hotel, which this particular hotel, my dad had read in the Jewish newspaper an ad about the Libby Hotel. It was down near near one of not the Brooklyn Bridge, but one of the other bridges there. And we went into this hotel, and my father had a raincoat, and I slung the raincoat over my shoulder so it would drape down and cover the back of the split in my pants. Well, anyway, this hotel evidently wasn't the finest hotel in New York, and when Mary came in there, she was a young, pretty girl, and all of the a lot of the men, were staring at her and looking at her, and she was quite embarrassed, and we were all quite embarrassed. Later, well, we stayed there one night, and we checked out. We found out that this was sort of an in-and-out hotel that we had stayed the night into. Well, after that, we moved up to another hotel across from Central Park. But I can remember when Mary used to play the piano, she'd sit on that bench and her hair would come down to the floor. And we always used to talk about that. And I think that was, to my mother especially, that was quite a precious thing, to see her hair like that. So, I'm going to turn this over to anybody who wants it. Oh, you...
What about your grandparents?
Well, my grandfather was Isser Singer, and incidentally, I had heard somewhere along the line that in Europe, our name was not Singer, it was Sonnenschein. And
Sonnenschein.
How
Anyway,
do you spell that, do you know?
S-O-N-N-E.
Sonnenschein. Anyway, when they came to when my grandfather came to, it was before Ellis Island, I believe, they came to Baltimore. So they couldn't spell this name Sonnenschein, so they put down Singer. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's a story that I it could have been,
Clarence, why don't you bring in Morris's name?
Yeah, well, Morris going to talk on that. Senator Schechter would like to say a few words here. You want to pass that down to?
Make it short.
First, Clarence, the grandfather you spoke about, is that a paternal or maternal grandfather?
It was paternal.
Oh, I don't recall him at all.
No, this is maternal.
The one I recall was Naphtula, who was my brother, and Nathan were both named after him.
No, but he passed away before I was born, I believe.
Well, this one here, the Naphtula passed away when I was about 2.5 years old.
Clarence wasn't born yet.
I know. Well, of course, I don't know anything about the St. Louis stories. I was raised in East St. Louis. I went to elementary school there and to high school, and it was a good school at that time. East St. Louis was a very good town, a good business town. It has changed now, as you all know.